Speaker.
I call the member Chris Farfoy.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. It's a pleasure to speak to the first reading of the Policing Cost Recovery Amendment Bill. Mr Speaker, I'm drawing on a couple of documents that have been helpfully supplied to us from the police to try and make sense of what is actually going on here. The first one is a helpful document from their website entitled Cost Recovery Frequently Asked Questions. And it asks a pretty simple question in terms of this bill: what is cost recovery and why are the police considering it? And the first two bullet points that it makes are, in terms of its four key objectives, are to reduce demand for over and above police services and to self-fund any increase in demand for any over and above police services. And Mr Speaker, I'd like to concentrate on that phrase which it has put in quotation marks here, over and above. And the question that we have been consistently asking on this side of the House is, when has it become over and above police services to check the backgrounds of people who we are going to put in positions of trust in our communities? And many instances have been raised around teachers, also people who are working in our early childhood centres. Mr McKelvey just mentioned an organisation like the Special Olympics who police vet their volunteers, the people who help them with their activities, and I think he mentioned drivers. There was an organisation that I met locally this morning with Women's Refuge, who I also understand would police vet their volunteers and their staff. And to think that the police vetting and the checking of the background of the people who work in these high trust situations in our communities is over and above what the police are expected to do, Mr Speaker, I think is a bit of a concern on this House, and which is why we do support this bill to Select Committee to get some more scrutiny as to what it considers, the police consider over, above and reasonable to charge for. I think Kelvin Davis and Chris Hipkins have made the good point about the Teachers' Council are concerned about not just the number of people who will now face increased costs to get their police vet checks, but also the fact that this may have a negative effect on checking out the background of people who work in our community. So we are concerned about that. We're also concerned of what might really be the motivation behind this introduction of cost recovery, because helpfully the third bullet point in this frequently asked questions supplied from the police is to offset increasing financial pressures on vote police. Now, we know that over the last 4 years the government has talked tough in terms of what it will do in law and order, but Mr Speaker, it hasn't necessarily backed that up with the resourcing that it has given police. We are concerned that this may be a move which may creep out further than just simple police vetting to try and take more pressure off what the government has done and taking money and resources away from our police force. We do realise that there probably is a fair enough debate to have some events or some functions of the police charged for because some companies and some individuals are making a lot of money out of some of the activities that our police are either keeping the peace or where we know there's potentially going to be big problems, whether they be things like music concerts, the Sevens here in Wellington, where we know there's going to be a big police presence and someone is making a hell of a lot of money out of it, and there may be an argument, Mr Speaker, in those terms that getting some cost recovery could be something that we could look into. But as I look into one of the documents on the table here, the Departmental Disclosure Statement, I see that on page 6 or 7, that there are a couple of government departments that have been consulted, which gives me concern around the likes of some cultural events, which I think we need to think about in terms of what added costs it may bring on to the organisers of such events. In box 3.2 it says Te Puni Kokiri was consulted on the draft cabinet paper and policy approvals for the bill, and the draft bill was sought from them. And then if we flick over the page, Mr Speaker, to page 8 of the departmental disclosure in box 3.6, it also says that the Pacific Island Affairs Ministry was also consulted. So I think the Select Committee stage, we will support this bill in the first reading. I think the Select Committee stage will be a really good opportunity to have people from the community, from different ethnic communities, who may face increased charges when they're looking at holding major cultural events. And I'm thinking in my own patch, maybe something like Creekfest, but also in Auckland where the bulk of the Pacific community is, Mr. Speaker, something like Pacifica would be something where there would be quite a large police presence. It is a community event, but would that event fall into the category where in the future they may get asked for a charge to have a police presence? It is a great opportunity to showcase some of our Pacifica police officers. I know they've used it as an opportunity to do that, to put out a positive message with policing. But I think if the organisers of that event, Mr. Speaker, were looking at facing increased charges for having that police presence, I think that would be of concern to them, because it would be a sizeable increased cost. The other thing that I think has been raised in this House is we don't want to get to the stage where we're opening up the charging or cost recovery by the police to have them chasing events. And the nightmare scenario I could think of, Mr. Speaker, is where we have authorised police officers doing the event control and maybe having a sprinkling of sworn officers there supervising it. And therefore the police would see that as an opportunity to go out and cost recover and charge the organisers of events a fee to make sure that there's a police presence there. That would be a step too far, Mr. Speaker, and I think the Select Committee will be the opportunity for us to ask those kinds of questions and hopefully get some assurances from the government that that's not, we hope, the road that it would go, that it is intending to go down. And I must say, and it's a serious point I'm trying to make, when I'm hearing the likes of Te Puni Kokiri and also the Ministry of Pacific Island Affairs have been consulted on that, I think that's a concern that I certainly do have in terms of those cultural events getting charged a fee for having a police presence. Again, Mr. Speaker, a major concern on this side of the House does come back to what is driving this. Is this another cost-cutting or pushing of costs to others measure that is happening by the government? We've seen around, I think it was about $40 million taken out of the police budget at the last budget, $40 million, and that is having obviously serious frontline effects at a time when I think while I praise the job that the police are doing, they're doing a very good job under very difficult circumstances. Over time, over the last 5 and a half, 6 years since this government took over, they have been asked to do much more with much less. And we've seen the strain that is putting on frontline officers. I believe that resignations from the police in terms of sworn officers has gone from an average of about 14 per month to somewhere close to 50 per month in recent times, Mr. Speaker. And I think we have to start asking some serious questions about what is going on with the police and the budgets to the point now where we're getting quite a lot of resignations. There may be, Mr. Speaker, something else behind that, not just simply budgetary pressures. Maybe it is some officers who have served for a long time have been asked to move on. But I would hate that it would just be cost-cutting measures right across the board that are putting huge strain on police resources. As we have said many times, this bill does have the support to the Select Committee. We will be asking some serious questions around the kinds of functions that the police think are over and above. We have concerns obviously around some of these sensitive positions in our committee where there will be increased costs. We do think there is an argument for events where there could be some charging, but again that does come with some caveats. So we will support this and look forward to seeing more out of the submissions from the Select Committee.